Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joanna. That was on my list to do first, was to introduce my colleague Natalie Cook, also with McNeese GR. So I would welcome, input from Natalie as well as President McNeil and Joanna as I kind of roll through this presentation. Because I'm going to be referencing some of the things that are on the website that the staff have done. And President McNeil, please chime in with, anything you have to add as well. But thanks everybody, Angie Armbrust, and we'll kind of get started on what is District Days, District Days 2025. It's a chance to advocate. And again, President McNeil kind of went through the CS Support Us, Pay Us campaign and touched on why it's important. Why do we advocate? What is it for? It provides you with an opportunity to take an ownership and to have a say in what's expected of you as professionals. You are licensed by the state of Pennsylvania. You fall under laws and regulations that are a result of laws and regulations that the state of Pennsylvania affect you in your workplaces, affect you in your practice. Advocacy gives you an avenue to learn about things that are going to impact your career and an avenue to make change in your career. So that is the why. The when is it? The event is going to be June 2nd through 5th of this year. So just in a few weeks from now, as President McNeil mentioned, we've got the press conference on our budget priorities scheduled for Tuesday, June 3rd at inside the main Capitol Rotunda. So not the steps this time. This one's a little bit of a smaller, more intimate affair, but we are on the steps inside the Capitol, which we absolutely can still kind of fill in nicely with people with signs and have a great visual inside the dome. So if you're able to, certainly connect with Joanna and make arrangements to attend if you can. But the time period we're asking you to reach out to your representative, to your senators, is June 2nd through 5th. So we're kind of doing this training now so you have time to reach out to them, to contact them, to review the talking points that we're going to be sharing with you and get comfortable with the material. So you can call and request a meeting or a phone call or a virtual meeting sometime during that week. What is District Days? It is focused meetings with members of the Pennsylvania legislature where they're at in their district offices. Now, there's a caveat because it's June and they are in Harrisburg for session in the beginning of the week, but towards the end of the week, they always do return to their district offices. But they also have district staff that staff those offices all the time, and meeting with staff is perfectly fine. And staff kind of often have time and availability in their calendars to do meetings when the members are in the Harrisburg office. So that's kind of why we're targeting a span of days. The mission is to educate legislators on NASW's legislative agenda, which will kind of roll through the main talking points in the next slides. It gives you as members an opportunity to connect with your own representative and your own senator in their district in a meaningful way and or with their staff. LEAD is fantastic for showing a big, strong visual of support and a nice complement of people attending a big rally and then filtering out through the Capitol. And I know schools often will go out and do visits with, the people who represent where their school is. But District Days is a bit more intimate and a chance for that one-on-one connection that really helps to build relationships. As I say in the last point, personal connections is how we ensure that social workers are at the forefront of policy decisions. It's through personal relationships. Our legislative agenda is three-pronged. It is focused on, sorry, I have to kind of move my visual of all of you so I can see the text. The social work compact bills, as Joanna referenced, House Bill 554 is finally posted on the legislative website for a public meeting on Tuesday, June 6th. Yay! In the House Professional Licensure Committee, I did link a link to the committee's website where it lists the upcoming committee meeting and then the bill's website as well. If you scroll down, it says, committee meetings, and it lists the date officially. So we have that to look forward to and to discuss. The sweet bill is House Bill 66. And then Senator Maria Collette has a mental health funding proposal called Time to Fix Pennsylvania's Broken Mental Health Care. I'll kind of run through each of these really quick, high level. I know Joanna's already talked about the Social Work Compact and what it does. 26 states have now enacted it. I have May move out of professional licensure committee in May because I did this presentation this morning, and sometime between 2 p.m. and now it has finally officially posted on the website. So it is scheduled for a vote in the professional licensure committee on May 6th. We don't know, how quickly it might come to the full House floor. We're hopeful that it would perhaps move to the House floor the following week when they're in session. So there is a chance that that House bill could be out of the House by the time District Days rolls around from June 2nd to 5th. We will give that information to NASW. NASW staff will keep all of the talking points that are available on your website up to date for you. So you'll have the most recent movement of the bill and you'll know exactly what you're asking for whenever the time comes when we get to June. The sweet bill, House Bill 66, establishes a program to provide funding stipends for MSW students completing internships to support funding deficits that are common during that period. A lot of students have to forego other employment or make decisions around healthcare or transportation or food or housing that are really detrimental to their personal situation. So these would be stipends to give support in that critical time period. It addresses the growing need of social workers, especially in underserved communities, and it directly targets the shortage of social workers by providing an incentive for students to enter and remain into the field. And again, there's lots more information on House Bill 66 on your NASW-PA legislative advocacy website. Lastly, we have Senator Collette's Time to Fix Pennsylvania's Broken Mental Health Care proposal. As part of the 2022-23 budget process, the General Assembly established a behavioral health commission on adult mental health. This commission was tasked with providing recommendations to the General Assembly on how to spend $100 million worth of funding. They broke it down. I won't read all the text, but long story short, the funding did not get distributed in that manner. And Senator Collette said, I'm not going to give up on this. This adult mental health is still a strong need in this state, and I'm going to keep introducing this legislation. I'm going to keep, reintroducing this proposal every session until to kind of force us to keep having a conversation about fully funding adult mental health and really putting money into workforce development that's critically important. So there is not yet kind of a one-pager on this proposal, but I'm providing that for NASW, so you'll have it so your staff, your office can have that ready there on your website as well. So now we'll get into the how. What do we do? What's it like to actually request this meeting? What's the process? The last time I did this presentation, it was a much less fancy picture, but the legislature has recently updated its website. It's new and refreshed and has beautiful pictures, and they move, and it's really cool. So you'll go to the website listed here, and you'll click the Find My Legislator button to search for your senator or your representative using your home address. So I used mine as an example to show you what that looks like. Find My Legislator, type in my address. Bye. It brings up who my personal representative and senator are. I click my senator, or I click my representative, Representative Nathan Davidson, and I've highlighted the district information because that's where you're wanting to call. His capital address information is on the far right, but the district is kind of down in the center, down below. It'll give you the address of where, if you're doing an in-person meeting, of where you would go, and it gives you the phone number. So that's going to be how you contact. So how to request the meeting. Phone calls work best in this situation to the district office. Um, I would know your availability for that time frame from June 2nd to 5th, know ahead of time. I could probably do a 20-minute Zoom meeting on my lunch break on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. Like, kind of have in mind what works generally best for your schedule, just in case they say, okay, let's look at the schedule right now. Be flexible, be as flexible as you can. If you're able to offer, um, I have 2 dates that could work, or I have this time frame that could work. It's also kind of nice to be flexible about saying, I'm happy to meet with staff, happy to meet with the representative, I'm happy to come in person. If needed, I have availability to do a phone call, or I could do virtual, kind of settle into what's comfortable for you, but be also kind of being mindful about making yourself available around their schedule. When you call, state your name and just say, I'm a social worker. I live in Representative so-and-so or Senator so-and-so's district, and I'd like to meet to discuss bills that are important to me as a social worker and to my state association. You might be asked to send an email to the scheduler in the office to follow up. Kind of some offices have their own preference where they like to have kind of a paper trail via email with your contact info and what bills you want to discuss. And again, all that stuff will be available to you on the NASW-PA website. Or you might just get lucky and say, sure, the legislative director in the district is free on Tuesday at 10, and schedule your meeting right then. So like we said, phone calls work best. Kind of be prepared as you're getting ready to make that call. Where your meeting will take place, I kind of touched on this. It could be at the district office, it could be virtual, it could be a phone call. Definitely confirm the address on the website when you look up your representative, but then confirm it too when you call. Occasionally they move. And then sometimes it takes a little bit of time for websites to get updated, but they do try their best to keep that up to date because it's critical information. Who will you meet with? As I said, it could be with the representative, especially if it's going to be a Thursday or Friday of that week. It could very likely be district office staff. It could be a combination of both. Maybe it would be the representative virtually from his office in Harrisburg and, the district manager from their office, and then you in your office. Any combination of those are perfectly fine and acceptable. It's not an insult at all to be asked to meet with staff. Staff in the legislature are incredibly capable people. They are tasked with being issue experts and distilling information for their boss, because their bosses are faced with a lot of different people wanting their time and attention all the time. So they really do rely on their very sharp, very well-informed staff to keep them up to date. Oh, and that's it. Sorry, that was a little abrupt at the end. But please,
Great.
Natalie, President Mignot, please feel free to add anything.
President McNeil just recently added in the chat that her dog escaped out of the fence, so she had to go take off after her dog, which makes sense, and we wish her the best of luck in recovering her dog quickly. But yeah, the only other thing that I'll add on is that yeah, those district offices, I don't think I totally knew what to expect when I first started visiting legislators in their district offices. Like again, I end up driving past mine all the time now that I sort of know where they are and what to look for. Didn't know that would happen. Also, like, it might be a part of a strip mall. Like one of my legislators that I went to go visit, they had their little office was right next to a UPS store, and kind of looked like that on the inside, just kind of broken off into little office spaces and district areas. They're a lot more informal in the district offices than they are in the Harrisburg offices. They're more likely to be wearing like casual clothing, like to just kind of, walk in and have an informal conversation, that sort of thing. So those are all I think random things to know that are a little bit different than when than when I was giving similar trainings about going to lead. And if you're meeting with folks in your legislator's office, it's a guarantee that like pretty much everybody's going to be in like a three-piece, suit, full business attire. Um, Relatively fast moving, right? Because they might have like 30 appointments that day, but in the district, it's more informal, it's more calm, it's more casual. But it's also like right there. And if, and there's pretty much no difference between a Zoom meeting and and that meeting. So if they do say like, no, we can meet via Zoom or, we've been we certainly since since COVID, but even way past that, because we've just kind of gotten used to it as a structure. The way that Angie and Natalie and I, along with our, as your staff team, but along with our legislative volunteers, like President McNeil, like Kathy, or our other conference or our other legislative committee chair, Katie Morton. Um, we do these meetings all the time via Zoom, and they're very like for informal and again easy to get on. They work very well. Angie, I saw you come off mute, so I was assuming you would
I saw
add
her
something.
talking, so I did mute. I would just add to, and please, if people have questions, please type them in the chat or just ask. But I just want to address too that this sounds and feels like a really big, heavy ask of us to ask you to call their office and ask for a meeting. But please don't feel like it is, we're asking you to do something that that you're not equipped to do, that you don't have the skills to do, and that wouldn't be welcome. You're
Mhm.
absolutely in your community, as a person who lives and potentially also works, in the district that these people serve, they want to engage with you. They want to know who you are, what population you're working with, what your job is like, what issues are important to you. And you can open with questions like, do you have any experience with social work? Do you know a social worker? Do you want to hear a little bit about how I was educated and what my day-to-day work is like? In addition to the, hitting the highlights of the bills that we're supporting and what we're asking them to do. It's making a personal connection, and they are people who seek this out, right, as they
Yeah.
run into the higher office. And this is something that you're uniquely skilled at doing via your education and training. You are natural connectors with people, so you're uniquely suited to do this work really, really well.
I think that's something that like what you just said just reminded me of something like pretty significant, which is, if we think about it from the legislator's perspective, they're coming into these scenarios and being asked to make policy decisions that impact the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the entire like every profession that's out there. And it's like literally impossible for any one person, regardless of their education or training. Maybe they're lawyers, maybe they're maybe they're doctors, maybe they're whatever, but they're also they're not going to be experts on everything. They're not going to be they can't be experts on social work and education and like zoning laws or veterans care and healthcare. And they kind of differentiate that out a little bit by being on serving on separate committees and having hired staff people. But they still, part of the way that they need to get information is to get it from their constituents and the people that they're serving. So it's not even just that you're like asking to meet with them to ask them a favor. You're kind of providing them with a necessary service. Like that is our role in this process as a general rule, which is to provide them with the information that they need to do their jobs effectively. Um, they kind of are aware that they're not an expert. They may or may not have even heard of social workers. Most of the folks that we've met with have at least, kind of know the basics of who we are. But, we've certainly encountered legislators who are less familiar with others. Only one legislator actually is a social worker. That's Representative Arian Abney, who happens to be the sponsor of our, compact bill because he is such a tremendous advocate of the profession. But others have social workers as their wives, daughters, sons. Yeah, yeah. Staff is a big one. A lot of them have social workers on staff. Some of them have had social work interns placed at their offices for their MSW studies. Um, they frequently need to do constituent services, which is to contact social services in relation to people who are asking them for, how do I get connected to, elder care services for my aging parent? How do I find my electricity just got shut off? How can I find support for that? Or like help against an unlawful eviction or that sort of thing. Social workers are frequently the folks who know those kinds of resources and how to get those kind of services done. So don't be surprised if they ask you questions like, well, what are you experiencing in your day-to-day life? Like what barriers, what policies might make things better? Because the ones who really genuinely care about these situations, they're kind of going to us as people, as those knowledgeable about what's actually happening and going like, well, how can we make some tweaks? What would make a difference? So that's been my experience.
And I would just add one more note too, and I know Joanna usually covers this when we do legislative trainings. Don't feel intimidated or off put over the fact that you may be of a different political party than
Mm-hmm.
an elected official. You're providing information to them about you as a constituent and as a voter in their district, about the work that you do in that district, and about, the services that you provide to people who live in your community. That is all information that they want to know, political party aside. Again, this is they want to be connected to their communities. I think you realize all politics gets real local. It gets everybody's sort of barriers break down the more local you get. So just because someone says or does something at a rally in Harrisburg does not necessarily mean that's their MO in their
But
district
that's
office.
how they are in their office when they're
Yeah.
talking to you individually.
Yeah. Checking preconceived notions at the door is really helpful because you'd be surprised how many people, even if they don't share the same views as you, are incredibly kind and personable when they have a constituent in front of them.
Mm-hmm. And I want to talk a little bit about that too. Like one of the things, especially in this environment that we're in now, it becomes really easy to paint everybody into a corner and be like, all right, well, just because you have an R by your name or a D by your name, that means you believe all of these things, this list of things. And I mean, I haven't encountered it in a while, and I know that we are getting more partisan in nature, and we'll see that, but it still is a thing where you don't necessarily know how anyone feels, and that you're part of the nature of working in the legislature or any sort of advocacy environment is that you have to accept the nature of coalitions and the fact that whoever may be your best friend on this bill might be an outright opponent on the next, and that those kind of things are okay. I know that, for example, the sponsor of the compact bill in North Carolina is someone who is championing their compact bill and is definitely carrying the water for them on that compact bill, but it's somebody who does not agree with NASW stances on multiple other things, and they're kind of have illuminated the experience of walking that line. Similarly, when I used to work at another chapter prior to moving to Pennsylvania, I encountered a situation where I was working on something in relation to suicide prevention, and there was somebody who, genuinely did not agree with any of our bills on much of anything. But because he had a family member who had committed suicide and was impacted personally by this issue, it was something that he had done quite a bit of research about and felt a little bit differently. And so we were able to, get someone as a champion of a bill who would probably never be associated with NASW for any other reason. And you just kind of have to welcome those experiences when they come around. So I don't know, for the 40 or so people we've had on this call today, I don't know, what districts you live in, what your experiences are. I know we have legislators who are more friendly and welcoming and are just like immediate supporters of and advocates of the social work profession. We have others that have occasionally been more hostile, but and that's to us as the profession. But we can pretty much guarantee, not 100%, but we can pretty much guarantee that your experience of walking into the legislator's office is not going to be a confrontational one unless you decide to make it a confrontational one and decide you want to challenge them on their past viewpoints or everything else. For the most part, other than that, they're going to be there to listen to you, to hear what you have to say, to take your feedback into consideration. And that's going to be true whether they eventually go your way or not. So definitely don't walk into it expecting your experience to be unpleasant, even if you completely disagree with your legislator on like everything that they ever vote for.
I think if you're really trying to suss out where your meeting might go, you have a few minutes after you've looked up who your legislator is to click on them and scroll down to the bottom of that page. It's a little hard to read on this new website. I don't love it. But down at the bottom of their websites, they have the list of their recent co-sponsor memos. And co-sponsor memos usually can give you a little bit of a picture about what's important to that legislator in particular, what they're working on currently. Some of it may be fluff, some of it may be something somebody's introduced year after year after year as a favor to a constituent or something, but it gives you an idea of a general picture of the things they care about, the things that they're invested in. So that's one way to kind of figure out where might this person sit, what kind of issues are they working on, what might I be able to connect with them on, excuse me.
Yeah. And it's hard to say, knowing specifically about the compact bill, like we said, there's a possibility that before district days happens, that bill may even be out of the House. It's probably not going to be out of the House and the Senate by that stage. Never know, fingers crossed and all of that. But one of the really big things about the compact bill in particular is that we have seen bipartisanship. Our House bill is sponsored by a Democrat, as we said, a Democrat and a social worker, Representative Arian Abney. But we have at least three Republicans who have signed on as co-sponsors to the bill. Similarly, the bill in the Senate is sponsored by a Republican veteran, Senator Pennycook. When we were pushing for bipartisanship during that time when the Senate sponsor memo was being released, when it finally came through as Senate Bill 583, it had 12 co-sponsors on the bill. 7 Democrats, 5 Republicans, which, for being the Senate is like a good, quarter of the Senate.
Yeah, that's great. It was a testimony to LEAD because the bill was in co-sponsor form, and then shortly after LEAD was introduced as a bill with a bill number, and the list of sponsors was healthy.
Substantial. And almost evenly split between Republicans and Democrats. So We definitely know that, that no matter that, regardless of the political party, that there is at least some appetite for like, let's make a difference. Let's get some things done that are going to actually help people. And something like a social work compact is, a fairly easy one to say, like, yeah, I don't have an objection to that. Like, what was it? I think we were meeting with a legislator not too long ago, asking him to sign on so that we could increase our bipartisanship in the House. And his after we talked to him about the bill, he's like, "Well, that's just like super logical, isn't it?"
And he signed on that day, I think.
Yeah, it signed on that day.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, we can't do that. That's way too logical and easy a thing to do. But hopefully we'll get discussions like that when you're meeting with your legislators, no matter what it's actually about. Mental health issues, met with Republicans and Democrats. They all seem to care about mental health one way or another. They definitely may disagree about the approach that's best to take, where funding is best allocated and that sort of thing. But that's why meeting with you as individuals can make a difference in that, because their opinion about any of that may be more philosophical or, based off of conjecture, or just like even research or like that sort of thing. But we know that that sits differently, then this is the experience that one of my clients had when they were trying to access services and couldn't. This was to take an example I've heard recently, this is the story of the person that I've heard who, who was an immigrant who got relocated because of, just despite family situation, because their attack, because their stalker was trying to harm them or other things like that. And I know that these individual stories can make this huge impact, beyond, I think, what we feel like we have the ability to do. And all of this with getting involved in legislative and advocacy work as the macro part of your social work profession, and our obligation under the code of ethics, really, is bringing those stories to the forefront, whether that be like empowering clients to bring those stories to themselves, but sometimes it's on us to carry that to them so that their voices can be heard, even if it's not them able to bring it. Their stories live on and can make an impact in the minds and hearts of our elected officials.
Yeah, I think that that's really powerful. And I would say too, you're also talking about you're talking about the field and your colleagues and how and yourself, and maybe you might get a question like, well, why is it hard to keep people in this field, or what's so hard about attracting people to this field? And you can say, if you have an experience like, well, a colleague was burnt out and overworked and made more money at convenience store, or you can kind of lay out personal experiences of other people in their community that, again, they don't know that information if we don't share it with them. And I wanted
Yeah,
to add one more note
that
about
ties it really well back to the CS Support Us, Pay
yes,
Us campaign.
and one quick note about the website. I was just scrolling over there and looking. When you scroll down to the bottom, as Natalie said, you can look at co-sponsor memos. There is technically a bio line. It's not very great. It's really not very detailed at all. It's kind of like what they're educated in or what their career was in before they came to the legislature. I would highly encourage you to just do a quick Google search of your representative and of your senator. They have their own websites as well. In addition to this legislative site, their own websites have their full bios that are much more in depth. They have a news center of press releases that talk about recent work they've done. So again, if you want to get comfortable, I'm a research person. I like to know, what I'm walking into. So that's a great place to do kind of background research before you make your phone calls.
It is. It is. I've been to those websites as well. They do, and it is also helpful to know, and especially because we're talking about when we're talking about district days, we're talking about your representative, your senator. I'm gonna say maybe at least half of them have some sort of thing where you can sign up to receive a newsletter from them
Yes.
that comes out like maybe once a month, giving updates from your legislator's office. Again,
Mhm.
whether that's somebody that you agree with or disagree with politically, it can be helpful just to get those memos as somebody who is a constituent of the district so that because even if it's somebody that that you're going to read their memo and it's going to make you angry if you see something specific that's like, well, I need to talk to them about this, then you have the opportunity to do so when you wouldn't have otherwise. But it can be, and they have like random community things like paper shredding days, or community events with like health fairs and that sort of thing, as other things you might get alerted to from signing up for their newsletter. Well, we are hitting on that 7:30 time. So I did want to check in just to make sure, see if there was any other comments, questions before we sign off. Certainly, I do want to say, and I think I can speak for all three of us, Angie, Natalie, and myself, when I say that, that if you have something scheduled with your legislator and you're coming up on that meeting and then you're kind of freaking out about like, well, what do I do? What do I say? Like that sort of thing. Any one of us would be an excellent resource and would be happy to like just have a phone conversation to get that scheduled, talk you through it, like answer the questions that might be coming up in your head, answer whatever anxiety like you're feeling as you step into that situation. um and those are going to be easy, but as we said, like we're talking about early June, so now's the time to really just start making those phone calls and say like, can I get an appointment, so that you have that on the books and know when it's going to be coming up, when the time comes.
Thank you all for your time.
Nope. Thank
Thank
you as
you.
well. All right. We are having a Meet the Candidates event tomorrow for to talk to our two lovely ladies who are running for president-elect to succeed President McNeil, who is on tonight. So if you want to join us, that one, no CEs attached to that one. It's a short event, only 45 minutes, starts at 7 o'clock, but check our social media and you'll see the app for that. But just wanted to make sure you were aware before we sign off for the night. Otherwise, thank you and good night.